Happy Tuesday and welcome to the Wolff Den, presented by In the Clubroom and Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. We're very honored today to have Dr. Jen Welter with us. Jen, thanks for being here. Welcome to the Wolff Den.
You know, I mean, it sounds like the place to be, right? Like we've all got a little inner wolf. Why not come to the Wolff Den?
My friend came up with that name. I had a couple of like Wolf Pack and Wolf this, but the Wolff Den. So we stuck with that, and we like it so far. Hopefully, it'll be a good journey for you in the Wolff Den. We got a lot to talk about here. It's very appropriate that we have you here at the beginning of March, which is Women's History Month. A lot of great events going on, but for people who don't know who you are, and we're going to get into a little bit of everything here, but for people who don't know who you are, give yourself an introduction and tell people.
So Dr. Jen Welter, best known as the first female to coach in the National Football League, but really before that, it's been a long time love affair with football. Played 14 years women's tackle football, then had the opportunity in that time to play for the first and second women's U.S. national teams. Actually cut my teeth in men's pro football as a running back for a season. And then on that same team, had the opportunity to coach the following season. So I lovingly say it was a revolution with the revolution. And then after the revolution, ended up going to the Arizona Cardinals in 2015. And then 2017, fielded the Australian women's national team as the head coach. And most recently coached in the Alliance of American Football defensive line, for that epic rise and rapid demise.
It's there's a lot of those leagues. We'll touch on a little bit of the of those type of leagues and everything that's going on there. We're going to get the whole history of who you are and how it came to be. But let's talk about what you're working on now. I always like to do that at the front. Tell everyone about Grrridiron Girls and what that means to you and how it started.
Grrridiron Girls is a national movement that I like to say is confidence through football and teaching the girls that there is no game they cannot play and no field they do not belong in or on. Football has been called the final frontier for women in sports. And to me, that was like a challenge, right? If we could play this game, if we could do it the right way, couldn't we do anything? And couldn't we, through that sport, change society? And that was a driving force for me. So when I was in the NFL, it was interesting because I had so many girls and women reach out and say, thank you for letting me know that I wasn't wrong for loving football. Because the girls who were, if they were playing, they were often the exception to the rule, right? Like there might be one girl who was playing here or one woman who was doing this, which being the first or being the one means you're also the only. And it is tough. And so I wanted to create a place where, girls weren't the exception. They were allowed to rule, right? Like you're not the exception to somebody else's rules. We're going to remake this and we're going to make it just for you. And so the camps have run all over the country, always looking to partner with other organizations, bring it in. Adidas has been our biggest sponsor so far. We've been coast to coast and top to bottom, really getting girls out there. And it's so powerful because this sport has just not had a place in a space for girls. It's got such an opportunity to also impact their confidence in a big way, right? This is that place in that space you're not supposed to go. Well, we can show you that with great coaching, there's nothing that you can't do. And if you want to play this sport, it's an option. If you don't, that's okay too, right? Find that place in that space where you can be magic. For me, it was the football field. But in doing that, I can work with the girls, be there, be visible, be present, and be a person that they can relate to. And so through the camps, we share the journey, and it's all about confidence through football. And then they get coached by some of the best women and men in the game, meaning, we have former and current NFL players. We have, not just me, but like all the women I roll with who are also amazing football players, and oftentimes are in the local markets, but the girls may not have known they existed. So I want them to see the women that they can go see play and realize, that they can look up to them. So full circle, just a lot of things. And it's been over 3.5 years now that we've been going, and, flag football is the fastest growing sport for girls in the country. It is a varsity sport in, I think, 5 states now, with New Jersey having just added. We're working with groups up there. Georgia came in. Sorry, I did 3 camps in Atlanta. So I'm like, it's just Atlanta, right? It's a whole state. It's a thing. But, Georgia came in. Florida's been the leaders, which is my home state. Nevada plays. Alaska plays. DC proper plays. So it's just really cool to see this starting to take hold. And oh, by the way, the NAIA has their first girls varsity flag football season this year, which means for the first time, girls can play football with the goal of changing their life trajectory, right? Through education and through football, which to me changes everything. Right now, you can see that there's a future in this. It's not you're playing football or you're being serious. It's like a serious opportunity, and you can be on the cutting edge. So I lovingly tell the girls, I'm like, there has never been a better time for girls and women in football, because you are all writing the future. You will do more and go further than someone like me ever did, because you're getting to play earlier. I didn't get to play until I was 22 years old. And so that's why it means so much to give these girls, the place and the space to fall in love with the game at a young age like the boys do.
Yeah, so a couple of things there. The camps are in multiple locations across the states. Is it at the same time, or is it you have to be at all of them, so it's like a tour?
Well, right now we are a tour. I cannot wait until the day that I have to take myself out of the equation and we have women up and running all over who can, do what I do without me. We actually have them. They just, I haven't gotten to that point, I guess, so that I would want to, because I love the camp so much. And then we partner with local organizations to be able to bring it in, because to me, it's really important that the girls get, at least a free opportunity, so you can bring it into the right communities where they might not have access to the coaching otherwise.
How many women or girls? Is there an age? Does it have to be 18 or 21 or?
Generally, we say 6 to 18. We have done obviously camps for some of the women's teams and older groups, so it's not out of our realm. But for the Grrridiron Girls, it's pretty much 6 to 18. Although we have had younger. That's on the parents. I say, you're the parent, But what's cool is that we can divide the drills based on the age groupings, within the camp, so that it's all age appropriate and competition appropriate. I can't wait until we get to the time when we have to say, nope, this is this age group and this is this age group. But right now, because there are some areas of the country where girls have never gotten to play, for a lot of them, we're really their first football experience.
Yeah, and it's summer camp, a sports camp is monumental in the development of your game. When I was in high school, I went before my freshman year, and when I was in middle school, I was always tall and I was always okay. My brother was much better. I have a twin brother. He was much better than I was. And I went to basketball camp. We went to 5-star Pocono Invitational, 76ers camp, and the way I shot up from 8th grade to my freshman year was incredible. And I put it all on the basketball camp, and I I think it was just playing against better people. Mostly there's good instruction, but there's nothing like getting on a court with people who are better than you and make you have to, because you hate losing.
Right.
Everybody has that hate
See how good people can be, right? Like it drives you. I remember when I was the head coach of the Australian national team, our players were the best in Australia, but they've been playing for 3 or 4 years, right? So we knew this was going to be a tough situation for them because they were so young in football, but they also needed to see what the sport could be like, right? Like they were thrilled to see teams that were better than theirs, and they all went back as like ambassadors to the game and like the people driving for better resources, better coaching, better overall level, right? So it's kind of like you sow the seeds of what that hunger and what that level can be like. And then, hopefully it takes hold and really grows from there. And it sounds like that's what happened for you with that camp.
Yeah. And, the University of Florida, and that's where I went to school. So they have a clinic for women who want to understand football more, but that's more of a learning about it. And whereas yours is more of a, getting in on the field and doing the drills and trying to figure out, hey, is this something I want to play?
Yeah. And I mean, we do education clinics for women too. We have a program called A Day in the Life that we partner with organizations to bring in, and we go through teaching them everything from a playbook to how everything fits together, right, on the field as well. So, it's just, to me, any program I design is to, really fill in a gap of something that wasn't there, right? Women want to learn about football. Great. Football is full contact chess. You want to learn, I can teach you, right? Guys want to learn about football. Yes, I can make them better. Girls haven't played before. You know what? At whatever your age level and wherever you are in this game, there's something that we can get better at. So let's figure out where you are, where you want to get to, and figure out the best path to pull you through.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a combination of the mental toughness and fitness and the physical, because like we watch football all the time, and it's for a lot of sports, but football is a complicated sport for plays. You can have people who are, and I don't call them dumb, but I call them, they're not book smart. And so it's not something that comes easy to them to go to classes, but they're on the football field and they're like, they're geniuses. People who wouldn't get the grades to get into, the top colleges, and some of these colleges reject people because they can't get in, but they're like, it's really, memorizing playbooks and knowing where to be and when. And if you mess up that one time, that could be the whole game.
Yeah. And it's functional intelligence, applied intelligence, right? We get good at the things that we invest our energy into, right? So if a guy is spending all of his time on a playbook and he has an opportunity to either spend the time on a playbook or study math, he might be better at the playbook because that's where his passion is and that's where his energy is expended. Now, it doesn't mean that he couldn't have been great at math, but if he never applied it, then you just don't know. You haven't had the functional practice that it takes to get fluid. So my dissertation was actually on the NFL's use of the Wonderlic in player selection. And so intelligence and sport intelligence is one of my areas of expertise. And the truth is that they have disproven a lot of the quote unquote IQ theories, right? If you don't know that, it's the intellectual quotient, meaning it's your top maximum capacity. Okay. And yet what they have found is that through function, right? And you'll sometimes hear people talk about the 10,000 hours. After the 10,000 hours, IQ is no longer predictive of success, which means it doesn't predict expertise. Now, it might predict engagement, right? You might choose something over something else because of how it came to you. But we have to, I think it's really important that we realize that human capabilities are so much greater than we have traditionally understood. And some of those things that were in the past considered like IQ related are often socialization related. They're often, upbringing related. They're often, resource driven, or even, the test isn't catching it because somebody has a learning disability and they read slower. It's not that they can't do it. So I think there are so many ways that you can be brilliant in the world, and it doesn't look the same in different people because those different people have taken that brilliance and put it into something, right?
It doesn't look the same on the same field or court.
No, it doesn't. Right. And I have people all the time, and this will make you laugh. They'll say, oh my gosh, Jen, football or doctor or this, that, and the other. Is there anything you can't do? And I'm like, yeah, cook.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what? Do I think I could? Yes, I can follow a recipe. But have I invested the time to really throw down cook? Right? No. But it's just been me running in and out of practice and grabbing protein shakes a lot of the time. So was it the energy that I put into really understanding if I add this, it'll taste like this, right? I don't mean I can't, warm up a pizza or I'm going to burn the kitchen down. But where have I put my taste and my time into really honing a craft? And that hasn't been the place, right? Does it mean I couldn't learn it later in life? No, it doesn't. And I'm sure I probably will when I'm not running from place to place all the time, right? To have a consistent kitchen is kind of a thing. Yeah. But it really is thinking about, I think if we think of expertise as fluidity, right? The things that you do really almost effortlessly and other people find really clunky or robotic or terrible, it just means that that's where you've put the work as opposed to somebody else.
Yeah, I think, cooking wise, it's kind of like just trial and error. I'm not a good cook, but I enjoy cooking and trying new things. So, that's part of why I don't know. You can be good at something if you do it enough, but some people can do it. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. They'll never be good at it. So there's got to be some type of talent and some, things have to all add up. Is there a Dr. Jen shake or a protein bar coming out on the market anytime soon? It sounds like we could probably start something like that.
We should definitely have something. My mom jokes, and it's a real story, but it's funny that she tells it. She got her tubes tied when I was about 6 months old. And the second I could realize that I could have a bottle and eat and run, that was it for me. She was like, picking you up and nursing you, all that stuff never happened again. Yeah. So the eat and run mentality has been with me, forever.
Well, do you have a program? I mean, while we're talking about, do you have a program or a brand of bar or shake that you think is either very tasty or works well for you?
There's a lot of them. I'm not going to give one unless they're telling me to shout them out and giving me some money for it. So, holler at your girl. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really on what your goals are. I like the more natural side. Make sure there's a good protein ratio and some good fats will have it stay in your system longer. Oh, is the guy showing up? So you guys meet the real MVP of this tag team. It's Tyson, the Chihuahua.
How did you come up with Tyson? Is it Mike Tyson?
It is, because when he was a baby, he bit his mom's ear.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
We did a Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. ticket for the fight.
Yes.
So we're big Tyson fans here.
Well, now you have a new Tyson, and this one has the best tongue game around.
Yeah.
Do you see that? It's like that all the time.
Michael Jordan. He's like Michael Jordan there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you talked about when you were younger. Did you play sports? What did you play when you were younger?
I did. Growing up, I was always an athlete. Grew up in an active family. Whether we were, running around at the beach or going on runs, my family has always been active, also going fishing. But my first real sport love, actually there were two. I was riding horses and playing tennis, and so was my sister. And my sister was way better at riding horses because she had longer legs. So, I was 2.5 years younger, but, I was still like, I should be able to do what she's doing. So she decided to stick with horseback riding and I chose tennis. And tennis was really a first love for me. I was ranked in the state of Florida for a number of years, played tournaments all over, and that kind of good stuff. So.
Yeah, I have some friends. My friend Brent, who usually shows up, he was a ranked tennis player in Florida. And my friend Adam Barron, his whole family is big into tennis. They do the Delray Open. So tennis is, and I watched your lead comment. So let's talk a little bit about this, and it really ties into who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. But tell everyone why you didn't continue on in tennis.
I had a coach who told me, and just full disclosure, I had not yet reached my top height of 5'2".
Yeah.
So I was going to a coach who was supposed to be that guy to take you to the next level, that dude, right? And he told me because of my size and my build, I would never be strong enough to play pro tennis. And as a kid, that's devastating, right? Like I had this invincible mentality that if I worked hard enough, I could do anything. And that was a real tough point for me, right? To say in this place and in this space, it's not possible no matter what you do. And so the kid who was, on the court every day, hours and hours a day, begging people to, play a little longer, started finding reasons to do other things. And I think it's not like I threw the tennis racket down that day and said, I'll never play again, but it just changed it, right? If it's not possible, no matter what I do, why am I doing this? And so I ended up stop playing tennis. And it was a shame because at that time I was already serving like 80 miles an hour. I was a young phenom, but it just wasn't there anymore. And then I started lifting weights and going to the gym because I didn't want anybody to ever tell me I wouldn't be strong enough again. And then I really found myself in team sports. And I think that's something that makes them so special is though I might not have been strong enough to do it on my own in pro tennis, in a team sport, right? I could find my place in my space. Because you don't have to have all of the answers in and of yourself. Your team has to find the answers. And so I really found myself being, just a great team sports player and one who had a unique way of looking at the sports and always kind of was, I guess a motivator in a way. Cause I was like a jokester.
Yeah.
But I was also really good and it came easily. So, you have that swag of like, I can do this. And like, I remember softball was always really easy to me because it was hand-eye coordination, right? Like I was going to hit the ball. You weren't going to strike me out. I think I struck out 3 times. That's it. My junior year in high school. Now I may not get on base, right? It may not be a hit every time, but striking out wasn't really a thing for me.
No, it's annoying.
I've been playing tennis forever.
Yeah, I was at the Gator baseball game, and to watch people just take that called strike 3 is just
it's terrible. But like I was so good at making contact that I was the lead hitter. I was a slap hitter, so I could reverse, all of that stuff because it wasn't hard to hit the ball, right? I'm going to make contact, and I was really fast. But there was a particular pitcher, and we were playing Okeechobee, and they were the defending national champions. So we weren't even supposed to be in this game, right? And our team was really good as long as we stayed loose and were laughing. And there was a pitcher who just could not pitch me a strike. It's hilarious. I was going up there and like doing the fake bunts and everything. And it was becoming a thing to me. And they were getting frustrated because now it's been several at bats. So my team starts getting nervous, and they had started to play tight, which wasn't good for us. And I took the bottom of my shirt and I pulled it through my my pants and then zipped them up so it kind of looked, looked a little special.
Yeah.
And I went up to pretend like I was slap bunting, and she threw it over the fence.
Nice.
And it was hilarious because everybody was like, oh, if you can't throw her a strike, at least you can hit her. And I was like,
Yeah.
when I got walked again, I like kind of trotted and tossed the bat, and I was like, thanks so much, right?
Psychology of sports.
Huh?
The psychology of sports.
Yep. So I was doing it even back then, and that's it. You know, it's telling of kind of the story of my career, I guess.
How'd you get into football then?
Loved it from an early age. It is the sport that the whole town shut down for in Vero Beach, and I always thought they looked like real life superheroes and wanted to be one. And that was also the sport that taught me that girls and boys didn't have a level playing field. Yeah. So I didn't actually get to play until after college. And when I did, that was it. I got an open tryout and I was like, this is what I'm meant to do with my life.
And it started with a women's league.
Mm-hmm. With the Mass Mutiny, which is now the Boston Renegades.
Okay. So women's professional league.
Yep.
It was a lot, you know, what we can hit on the inequality part of it, because it goes a lot in all the sports, you know, not just football, even the sports like this, everything that's going on with soccer, where they're, you know, much more well-known and perform much better than the men's team and have to fight for, you know, what they're getting. I read Abby Wambach's book. Was very inspiring. She's obviously, you know, someone like you who's a trendsetter and fighting for all of that. And that was before, you know, they were in the news. And so why do you think it was? I mean, was it football? Is it just because of the danger of it? And I know you have, you know, your thoughts on that when you told your story about your first tryout with men. But is that really what it boiled down to from the start, is just the danger that people thought, for women playing in not a man's sport, because I don't call it a man's, but on a man's team.
On a man's team, yeah, no doubt. You know, and yet there's still not parity at any level for, you know, women in football, right? For the first time, we're talking about firsts in women in football and even in flag to this day, right? Like that shows you something about how far the disparity is. Now, flag is an easier sport to move the needle in faster because the investment isn't as high. The equipment isn't as expensive. So it's taking off because one, you know, you use it and tackle anyway. Two, you don't have to invest in pads, helmet, and all of those things. Three, the teams aren't as big. Four, you don't have the objection of, you know, tackling and all those things. So flag is an easier place where the needle can be moved for girls and women in football. But it is still a sport that, you know, I mean, think about it culturally. Think about how deeply it's like it is in our culture. And I use the food analogy. You know, what happens on football Sunday, or traditionally what if you were watching a movie? The guys go in and watch football, and what? The women go into the kitchen and cook the dinner. You know, I looked at that and I was like, whoa, wait, I'm going there. Yeah. Right. And so there are still cultural implications to even women being in that game. Right. There's a book that is called, and I remember seeing the title years ago, The Stronger Women Get, the More Men Love Football, right? Like that it is the last bastion of their safety, their man cave, like in sports. And to me, I would look at it in the same way and say, I'm like, does anybody else realize that we call it America's game, right? American football. And it's the only sport that has yet to make room for America's women, right? Like, what are we saying in that there isn't a place and a space? And thankfully now we're just now getting to the point where you're seeing women break through at the highest levels and girls getting opportunities to play at the earliest ages, which means that it's being pulled from the top, like the game's being pulled up from the top and it's growing from the bottom. So I think you'll see a lot of that start to shake out, but it's deeply rooted in cultural tradition.
Yeah, it's got to start early because that's how you get the talent, right? Because once you have that, if it's just at the top and they're really good, they're going to move on. So it takes time to get, unless you're a prodigy, which that's going to be tough to find, but it takes time and it just takes interest too. It's funny. I was just having this conversation about soccer. Every single kid plays soccer, and our men's soccer team is not anywhere near what every other sport is. So, it's not just getting them to play. Now you got to have it. People some of the ideas people have is, look, it's not that glamorous to be a soccer player. So I can maybe try this sport and I can make a lot more money, or I can get more fame, or maybe there's more a path to, to visibility really too. So getting them.
It's also how rooted in culture soccer is, right? If you go to Mexico, they're playing on the beach, right? And everybody's involved. It's not just you show up to soccer practice, right? Like, it's a pastime, it's a joy, it's a pick up a ball and kick, and also relatively inexpensive, right? And so in America, we have so much competition for time and interest that, things get pulled in different directions.
Well, that's a curse and a blessing to have so many sports that we're good at that you can play and have the access to it.
That's right. And think about it. Soccer travel season is football season. So right there, you're traditionally saying either you play this sport or you play that sport, right? That's why you can play, football, basketball, baseball. But the second you say, okay, well, where does soccer fit in? Does it? Right? Like now it's soccer, basketball, baseball, or, soccer, basketball, soccer, or something, some other combination. And so all of the choices that we have also, that there establishes a hierarchy of time investment, right? And then there's also body type, right? Certain body types are going to be more successful in soccer than maybe in football, right? Same with basketball. So you also want to match your sport interests with your physical advantages. Not meaning it can't be done, right? But where are the kids going to gravitate to? Probably where they do a little better, right? Where they naturally find a fit, and, oh, by the way, where their friends are, right? Yep. Because if your friends are all doing this is what you're going to do. If we're going to go play, are we the kind of kids that go play football in the streets, or do we play soccer in the streets? And those are very culturally infused choices.
Yeah, outside of our leagues, we played everything but soccer. I mean, we played football in the backyard, basketball, stickball, everything. But it's hard to put together a soccer game and not as exciting to put together a soccer game in your backyard as any of the other ones. That was for us growing up. So it's probably a good time to segue into soccer and football. I assume and with it being National Women's History Month, Sarah Fuller, have you followed that situation?
Yeah, I know Sarah.
Yeah, so I've reached out to her. I'd love to have her on the Wolff Den, especially this would be a great month to talk. But I was fascinated by her story because, and I had people in this comments would be like, they shouldn't, it was a publicity stunt and she shouldn't have done that. And there's a couple of things I have to say about that. And it's sort of, I think I've heard you talk about this before also, but one, she was good enough to be on the field. That's the first thing. And nobody should have worried about what happens if someone hits her. She understands that if she got hit the same way you got on the field and understand you would get hit. But there's people who just have that opinion, and you're not going to convince them otherwise. And but even if it was a publicity stunt, you have to get what you said is you have to get your foot in the door, and then you have to do something with it. And that's with everything in life. You can do as much gimmicks as you want, but it matters what do you do with it once you're there. And I think she did fine for herself when she got in there. And I'm surprised that it took this long to have someone, participate in a game, because it's funny. We look at, if we go back in the day with movies like Little Giants and Necessary Roughness, I mean, it was there.
Yeah, but and in all fairness, her situation was unique, obviously, because of COVID. So for those people who want to say it was a publicity stunt, like, let's just think about how it was also a little bit scary and a little bit hard. And they went to her and asked her to do something, and she said yes. Yeah. Right? Like, that's a tough thing to be in. But let's also remember that there have been women who have kicked before. She is not the first to have kicked in a collegiate game or a pro game. She just happened to be in Power 5, which is all eyes on me. But we can't forget, women like Kate Hindy or Patricia Palinkas or Julie Harshberger or Becca Longo, who's the first female to earn a collegiate scholarship as a football player and as a kicker, or Tony Harris, who, got a college scholarship as a defensive back. So, there are girls and women that have, done these things in football before. It just so happened that hers was in that conference and in that situation. So she was there and did a good job in the situation that she has had, but her success was standing on the shoulders of women who have not had an easy time of it, who have had even less support and definitely didn't get that same notoriety for doing it, right? I didn't get that same notoriety, and I played men's pro football for a year. Yeah. And I applaud her for doing what she needed to do. I think the people that want to find, something negative to say about it, like, what I really hope it does is it opens people's minds and hearts to do the due diligence to find the women who have been playing all this time, right? I hope it extends the conversation so that they say, oh, wait, so let me check out who Becca Longo is, or let me see what this WNFC is all about, right? Like, let me look and see, because this is really cool and it got my interest and I didn't know, right? The coolest thing about something like that, or a first in any type, is that you can't get mad at somebody for what they didn't know, right? If they didn't know women were playing football, then we can't get mad that you didn't watch, you didn't know. Right. But if you saw Becca kick and you're like, wow, that's really cool. I didn't even know women play football, but now we got you curious enough to take a look, then you're going to see, wow, these women can ball. Right. And so I hope that her breaking that barrier turns, some of the attention and the eyeballs to the women who have been doing it in the trenches for a very long time, right? Digging in and doing the work. And, that was something that her and I talked about, and she thought it was amazing that, women had been playing, and she knew, she had done due diligence before she met me too. So I really respect that about her. And, her love and passion is soccer. She's back on the soccer field now, but I think she also realizes, and I wanted her to know, that she became a part of the football family by doing that. And though she was alone on that field in terms of being, the only woman that day, she was not alone as a woman in football.
No, and it's a lot of support everywhere. Yeah. From a lot of people, as it should be. And every time I post something like that, I always hashtag it with herstory, HERSTORY. And, it's a great story, right? But I'm looking forward to the day when it's just a story and not a story because of she's the first this or first that. There always has to be someone who's the first in order to get it moving. But let's celebrate Kim at the Marlins for being the GM, because she deserves to be the GM, and she's good enough to be the GM, not because she's a female and then also she was being Asian. So
my favorite was hearing guys say, yeah, it's long overdue. When it came to Kim, right? Like, yeah, we've all seen that in her for a long time. And also it's great to hear, Jeter saying, like, she's a real deal, and making sure that she was getting the same type of look. And that's what we need, right? Like, we need great male allies. Like, it's not just it's not just women progressing, it's women and men learning how to be better together, and that we can all raise each other up, and that we want great talent in whatever the package is, right? And why not? Why not explore different ways to look at the world and different things that can be done?
And the bar is so much higher for her, because if she doesn't do well, then there's going to be all the chatter of, well, right? But how about all these GMs who just do a terrible job and keep getting hired? Mm-hmm. Right?
It's the same conversation they have about minority coaches a lot of the time. So it is. But the good thing is that I don't anticipate her doing a terrible job.
I think they got a good. I'm down here in that area, and I think they're going to be doing good things. So I'm anticipating looking forward to this season. The interesting thing about football, with women as opposed to other things, is there probably never will in my lifetime be an opportunity to have maybe a women's football team in high school and college, full on pads.
They're working on it. There's the Utah girls flag football, Utah girls tackle football, started by Sam Gordon. So they've been leading the charge for girls tackle football in high school. And I believe there are several other states that have it now as well. But don't quote me on that. But definitely Sam Gordon and the Utah Girls Tackle Football League has been leading the way. They actually played an exhibition during halftime at the Pro Bowl 2 years ago. Yeah. So, it is happening. Okay. I don't know what the talks are, if the goals are to have tackle football in college, what that looks like. But I do know that there are areas of the country that have tackle football for girls in high school. So
right. But the reason I brought that up is because if I don't live in Utah and I'm a female and I want to play football and I'm good enough, I should be able to play. Everyone who gets on the football field has to sign off on all the risks that there are. Mm-hmm. And if I'm good enough, I should be able to play. So I think we should maybe, and there's obviously, if you see the professional, there's plenty of women who can compete at a higher level.
And there are lots of girls who play high school now.
Yeah.
But usually it's one girl on this team. So it's a hard road, right? But you do see them. And I know there's a phenomenal program that the WNFC does that's called I Got Her Back. And, those are women's tackle football players who will, if they're in the area of a girl who's playing, go to her game and support her. Or, they'll highlight her stories on their Instagram and different things just to, really say you're not alone. And so there are amazing women who are working to change those dynamics and to really reach out and give support to the girls that are breaking those barriers and playing, because it's important to know that you might be the only one on that team, but you are not the only one and you are not alone.
Yeah, it's I hope that everyone who wants to play gets a chance to play. And that's really what anyone's only asking for is, I just want a chance to play. And from there, it's up to you and everyone else to carve their path. You're considered a trailblazer in this. What does Women's History Month mean to you? Obviously, any woman should feel proud about it, but it's got to mean something a little bit more special for you with the path that you've taken and the stuff that you have gone to get to where you're at.
I just hope that a piece of my story gives someone courage on a day that they need it, or inspiration to keep going on a day that they need it. Because that's what we all need, right? And we want to hear stories or share stories or celebrate people who could think differently and do differently. And then you might have a little piece of that invincible that you bring into your own mind and in your own life.
Yeah. So you've had a pretty successful career as a player, winning some Super Bowls and some gold medals. What was your favorite accomplishment or moment as a player individually? I know you're a big team person, but individually, was there something that just stands out as oh my God, that was awesome?
Yeah.
Huh? Did you have like 6 touchdowns in a game or 3 interceptions or, something crazy like Al Bundy used to talk about his Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah. I wish I remembered. I wish I had kept better track of personal milestones like that. I know there was a game at Texas Stadium that was really special because it was the only game that I got to play as a player in women's tackle football on an NFL stadium. And this was old Cowboys Stadium. And I remember going out there and first of all, like the hump in the middle of the field was so big that I couldn't really see from one side to the other, right? Like I realized just how short I really was, but it was nerve-wracking to be on that field. And we actually had a lot of fans, but of course it didn't look like it because it was so massive. And I just remember thinking like, oh, this is big. Like, I don't know, there's just extra nerves. And then kind of like you make that first tackle and it's like, all right, it's football, let's go. Right. But that was a game that I had 2 interceptions and really had a strong game. But it being in Texas Stadium really resonated. There's moments like winning a gold medal that you'll never forget. There's training camp for Team USA 2010. And I know that sounds funny, but it was 45 women taken from all corners of the world who normally were going toe-to-toe against each other and brought to Round Rock, Texas in June. And it was as hot as it had ever been. The field was so hard that your cleats wouldn't dig in. So like there'd be moments where you were hitting it like skates. And it was the hardest training camp I'd ever been through. And yet not one of us quit. And not one of us knew what we were going to be up against because we had no tape on other teams from across the world. And I think it was the story of stories within women's football. Here you have the best 45 women in the world in America's game come together to win a gold medal, and no one even knows we exist, right? 3-a-days in Round Rock, we go and we defeat the world 201-0. And when we come back, crickets.
Yeah.
And when we went back the next year, 2013, we only had one jersey because we were the defending gold medalists. And then they decided that our navy blue jerseys were too close to the black jerseys for Team Germany. And they made us switch. Well, we didn't have white jerseys. We had our white practice jerseys, the mesh jerseys. And I just remember like there were no names on the back. It was just Team USA on the front. And we, we kind of took it as like, okay, this is what it is. Underestimated, all I need is a white t-shirt. We don't have to be fancy. We're going to take this as a personal affront. And we beat Team Germany, I think 107-7 or something like that. So
does it hurt the sport when there's no competition globally?
Oh, I wouldn't say there's no competition globally. I would say we were that darn good.
Well, I mean, that's when you're that much better than everyone else. That's what I meant.
Yeah, and we were mad.
Yeah, that's that's a crazy score. What are you most proud of football wise coaching aside from obviously that first time you did it?
The fact that from the Alliance American Football League, every one of the D linemen who were in my room went and played somewhere else. That's whether it was in camp to the NFL, the CFL, the XFL.
Yeah. Speaking of the XFL, do you think there's a market for all these? I know the AFL, AAF, and XFL. Have you heard of or seen the fan controlled football league that's out there now? I watched a little bit about that. Is there appetite for enough of that year round? Is it they need to get the players? What do you think about those leagues?
I think that there is absolutely a need. I think there's a hunger, and they will do very well. I love what the Fan Controlled Football League is doing. I know those guys really well, Ray Austin and them. I mean, they're looking at football as if it had no rules, right? They're not saying like, oh, let's move the chains in football. They're like, forget your chains. We're just going to start over. And what an innovative way to do it with Twitch and, with giving some ownership. And they really have a desire to help the players build brands as well and to set themselves up for, the bigger picture in life. A great example of that, one of my guys, Bones, who played against me when I was in indoor football, right? Like that's the love and respect we have. Like he'll come in a room and he was like, yo, you just need to know she is legit, right? So Bones playing in the Fan Controlled Football League and he got hurt. And rather than just saying like, don't let the door hit you. They made him, they gave him hosting opportunities. And he's such a character that he's crushing it. And that's what it should be about, right? Like if we have opportunities to keep good people in our mix, why not do it? And I
for them
giving more guys a chance to play.
Yeah, when they're good, find something for them to do. That's why I talk about this, the wave of great candidates now because they were let go from a job. I'm like, there's some people you should never have let go. I don't care what your financial situation look like because it's going to bite you. You have someone who's good, you keep them and you find a way. It's like when Rick Ankiel couldn't pitch anymore, they put him in the outfield. So you find a way to get someone, find a way to get on the field, find something for them to do when you have the good people. I've talked to Patrick and I'm hoping to have him on, have some more conversations probably after the. Oh
yeah, he's great.
They're very busy, but the commentary has been excellent. There's a lot of good banter on social media out there for the FCF. Excited to see where that goes and excited to see what The Rock does with the XFL because there's so many good football players. The thing about, there's a lot of people on a football team. So you think about, even now there's a limited amount of people in the professional, there's still so many people available. And it gets even less in basketball to think there's 12 people on 30 teams. I mean, that's crazy how little professional basketball is. So I think the G League can make something of themselves as well. Did you ever see the show Pitch on ABC with Mark Paul Gosselaar and
briefly
the pitcher, and it went out, but it was a girl who got signed by the major leagues, and we see a lot of this in entertainment, like movies. I mentioned Little Giants and Necessary Roughness. Do you have a favorite movie that involves a woman excelling in sports? Is that something that you watch, or would that be something that interests you? Would you think there'd be more movies coming?
Absolutely, I think we need more of it, but. Personal favorites in that vein, I'm going to go old school, Love and Basketball. It's one of my favorite. I always felt like that hit home for me. I always kind of wanted to be like the Love and Basketball, like, oh, okay, yeah, but I'm out here balling. Like, kind of felt like, that dynamic. Loved that one. $1 Million Baby, though I hate the ending. Yeah. I mean, I know it's a true story, but like, what a phenomenal story. And it hits home too, because when I was playing in indoor, the guys would joke and they're like, oh, you're like our $1 Million Baby. And I was like, yo, do not put that on me. I do not want my movie to end like that. Right. Yeah. And they're like, oh, sorry. You know what we mean though. And I'm like, yeah, no. Right. Like, let's not put that out there. And then, I'm in for a G.I. Jane all day of the week. Oh, I think we need to see more of that because those women exist, and let's highlight it, because part of what was great about that movie is that by being good, she won them over, right? Like, there are scenes in that movie that are so iconic that, I know I pulled from at times and we would laugh about. So
even something as simple as shaving her head.
That's right.
In that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, to me that is an iconic film, and I don't know that it gets enough credit. But that would be, if we used to say, if you were stuck with only a few movies, what would they be? That's one I can't even say how many times I've watched, and I will watch it probably that many more.
It's a great, great movie. We're running out of time here, so I always want to get to a couple questions for you, but we didn't get to talk about your book. So you have a series of books. Let's talk about that real quick before we give you the rapid fire.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I did with one of my really good friends, which made it even better, is create a kids book series called Critterfitter, which is using critters to get kids fitter through motion and emotion. And those books look at the different things that were going on in the pandemic, because obviously that's what I was writing about, and come out with solutions for them, right? We have this book, Critterfitter with Busy Bee and Adventure and Movement, gives kids and parents like a 20-minute animal-based exercise that they can, play pretend and get some giggles and wiggles with an actual dynamic warm-up and cool down. And they're all literally like doing things that the animals would do.
What are the ages? What are the ages that this for?
This one probably plays the youngest of any of them, but we say up until 12. That seems to be the sweet spot. Some of them a little bit, some kids just age faster. I would say the adventure and movement's probably best for like up to like 8, just depending on how much fun your kid will have with it, right? Like, will they play pretend and do animal stuff? Then it's the right book. Then the next one, this one probably trends the youngest and yet is the most universal, meaning it's simple. And yet I have had so many people tell me like that it just hits straight to their heart as an adult. And it's When a Ladybug Can't Hug. And it really talks about like how the world shut down and now you couldn't hug anybody. And then you see Ladybug come up with a way how she can connect through the heart while staying 6 feet apart. There is Wearing a Mask Says I Love You. And this one goes through all of the CDC guidelines, gives the mask a hero story, and ends with a call to action. This is the one that's gotten, the most buzz, kind of the most praise, for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
and then we have The Resilience, which is probably my favorite, maybe because it's the newest, but it has characters like Vigilant and Brilliant and Lantern who become armed with antibodies and knowledge so that they have every advantage to defeat the virus and its invisibility. And it gives really kind of a roadmap to how we can, be resilient and how we can get back to school, return to work, and play.
Great. Well, and where can people find those books? On your website?
Yep. You can find links to them on my website, or they are all available. You can Amazon Prime it, or you can put it on your ebook, your Kindle. That's what it is. Kindle. Sorry. This is how you know I'm tired. I'm like, what's that thing? It's like this. No, not my brain. It's that thing.
For kids, the physical version is very good with the illustrations and all of that, I would think.
Yes. I love books. I did a more adult, like a really adult conversation the other day, and they were like, can you tell us what books you're currently reading? And I was like, nothing written for anybody over 12.
Yeah.
And they were like, what? You're a doctor? And I was like, yes, but I'm in kid book writing mode. Yeah. So I am fully immersed in learning how, the masters of that craft do it well, so that I can hopefully, be a master as well.
Yeah, Emily Cole of the Savannah Bananas just put out a children's book. It looks pretty interesting. It's Women's History Month. Give me your Mount Rushmore of women in sports. 4 of them, the 4 best. Any sport, 4 best.
Nancy Lieberman. Definitely. Let's go. Gosh, I have to go with Serena because, she's She has goals, although I watched like Gabriella Sabatini and Zina Garrison and Martina Navratilova, but we'll go Zina. I'm going to
Jennifer Capriati age.
Jennifer Capriati was she was a few years older than me, and yeah, I was obsessed. I went to Bollettieri once actually to kind of try and be like her. I am going to go. Let's go Kendall Coyne Schofield. That's my girl in hockey and a brilliant, lovely human being. Nancy is also a dear friend. Let's see. So I did basketball. I've got tennis. I've got hockey. Gosh, I have so many friends in soccer. But, I'm going to say one we haven't heard in a while. I'm going to have to give a little love to Hope Solo, who, is just, I think she was before her time in terms of speaking out, which is always tough. But definitely a mover and a shaker, and somebody who, I have a great friendship and deep respect for. I mean, there's so many. See, I look at it and I'm like, there are so many women on there, right? Like, I'm like, oh, what about Anne-Marie Drysdale? Like, she could go up there and, football, you guys might not know her, but her name is Jessica Springer. Like, she used to run a 5'10", 40, or like she was 5'10", 220 and ran a 4'8", 40. Like, she was cold, and she is now, if you are into like powerlifting, she's breaking all kinds of records. And I just look and I'm like, because she played before people knew. So yeah, those would be some of them, but there are so many I can think of, and I'm like, oh man, I should have put this woman in there and this one, but
too many good ones. That's what's tough about putting together a Mount Rushmore. Was there someone you grew up? I know you said Capriati, but was there someone you grew up idolizing and saying, from a woman's athletic point of view? I
think women's tennis was so prominent to me because it's what I watched and what I played, but they really did, to me, encompass everything a woman should be, right? Like, you could watch them. They were like, goddesses to me, right? Like, they were strong and powerful, and they were owning their game, and, they wore skirts, but like they weren't confined by skirts. And so I really loved watching Gabriella Sabatini, Zina Garrison, Steffi Graf was one. Chris Evert was kind of out of the game by the time I was really appreciated watching it, but I got to watch her some.
She has a great event down here in South Florida every year. I think they didn't do it last year, but hopefully they'll have it again.
Yeah. I mean, so many. And then from a soccer perspective, I got to go to Michelle Akers-Stahl's camp. And it was like, right. Like I couldn't believe it because she was right there, and she was like actually real and like out there helping us. And it had such a big impact on me to have, like a living legend out there coaching us.
I was walking behind Mia Hamm on my way to a Bears game one time with my guys. It's a funny story for another time. What sport do you think, and couple more questions, we're going to let you go. What sport do you think that women can be most competitive with against men? I know it's kind of a weird, tough question, but and in some ways there are women who could beat men, obviously. I'm not going to deny that. But on a whole, if you had a team in there, or you had someone on the men's tour in golf or tennis, is there something that stands out that you think the women would have the best shot at?
Yeah. Horseback riding.
Horseback riding?
Yeah, because being light is an advantage.
Okay.
And the control and the mental part of it. Horseback riding is one. Like, jockeys have a weight limit. Wrestling also, because of the weight class, right? Because then you're more likely to be paired against somebody your size. Your musculature might be slightly different, right? But the more you can be on parity and have it not just be sheer speed based, right? Like it's training and technique, the better off you are. So I think things with weight classes.
I feel like I've seen some women jockeys in the Triple Crown races already.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there are definitely female jockeys.
They're already doing it.
And that's why I use it as an example, because it's the same race.
Yeah, great. Give me a bucket. I know you've been to a lot of places and met a lot of people. Is there a bucket list event that you've never been to that you'd love to attend?
Probably World Cup rugby. I love the game of rugby. I'm surprised that we're not hipper to it in America. But I just think it's a fantastic sport. I would actually love to go to like New Zealand and see the All Blacks play. Like that would probably be goals, because my destination goal is definitely New Zealand. I had players on the Australian national team that were from New Zealand, and this is actually greenstone or New Zealand jade, and it was hand carved for me and was a gift for being the head coach of the women's national team. So awesome. It doesn't leave me. So there's always a piece of my heart that's kind of in New Zealand. And I think it'd be great to go right now since they have no COVID.
Yeah, well, they got one and they shut it down. Is that how you're supposed to do it?
But that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I want to go see the All Blacks play in New Zealand right now, because it could be really normal, and that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I have a twin brother went to Australia, New Zealand for his honeymoon, and he brought me back an All Blacks rugby ball. So I have that, which is pretty cool. Last question I ask everyone: you have one person you can hang out with for 24 hours, and they have to be alive. And it can't be a family member. Who is it going to be, and what are you guys doing? And I say that because my goal is to make it happen for someone. So come up with something good.
Gosh, there's so many people I'd like to know and things. I think one though that would be really cool to hang out with, as like Michael Jordan. And I say that because he's the ultimate competitor. And I've heard so many good stories about how he's openly helped people too. Like, I'd love to, go through a day in the life of Michael Jordan, right? Like, you're now a teenager, you're watching these games. Like, how do you view the game of football or the game of basketball? Like, I want to see it through your eyes. I just want to experience, like, literally, what is it like to be like Mike?
Yeah, that's the first time we've gotten Tiger and some other ones. That's the first time we got Air Jordan. And
right. And I say that as a non-basketball person.
Yeah.
Right. Like, basketball is not my first sport. My friends know, like, I will go and watch it and support it. If they're in it, I will go cheer on Nancy's team when she's rocking it in the big three. I'm there. But it's not like the natural sport for me to be inclined to, because it wasn't, one of mine that I played. But I think he would be really fascinated, and I'm just so curious, right? But there are so many I'd love to meet and see.
It's tough to narrow that down. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on. You're doing great things in the realm of football, in the name of women, and it's just an honor to have you on our show here. Football everyone loves football. We do a sports event with my friends, and we're in our early 40s, and we were playing beach football, tackle beach football, 2 years ago. So football is, everyone has a football story. And I think, getting women to get more active and into it is a great thing for everything. But football, whatever it is, whatever you want to do it, because you can do it, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't, right? That's your advice. I've heard you say that before. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, and any last piece of advice or shout outs before we let you go.
Yeah, for sure. JenWelter.com is my website, at JWelter47 on Twitter, Welter47 on IG, Welter47 on LinkedIn. And at Critterfitter, at Get Critterfitter on IG, and Grrridiron Girls with 3 R's on IG as well. And my advice would be, like, take the things that people say is wrong about you and learn how you can make it something that's right. Because trying to be something you're not isn't good for anybody. But when you realize that being small can be an advantage, then where is it an advantage, and use it to the utmost and be passionate about what you do. there will be so many people in your way who tell you what you can't do and why you can't do it. And you don't have to let them be right.
Yeah, think about how many people told Spud Webb he's never going to play pro hoops, and he's a slam dunk champion. So great advice. Great to see you again. Great to talk, and happy to help any way that I can. Thanks for coming on the Wolff Den. We got some great guests the rest of the week. Casey Delapina, Mel Lice, Brian Bauer. Have a great day. Have a great week. A great Women's History Month, and we look forward to hearing some great things that you're doing in the future.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.